Is this good? Okay. Hey guys, my name is Victoria, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm filming my April wrap-up, which will be very short. Because I only listened to 4 books, but I started reading like 10. So after wrapping all the books up, I will tell you about the books I'm currently reading or have started. I don't know, this month wasn't that strong on reading, but I'm gonna tell you about them regardless. Also, I thought I might include some poetry that I read throughout the month. It's not that much. I think I will only show you like 3 poems that I found really pretty and just tell you a bit about them, because someone actually suggested in the comments a few weeks back actually, suggested that I do such a thing, like a poetry wrap-up. I don't read that much poetry though. I read like tons on the internet, but Okay, anyway, before this intro gets too long, we're first going to talk about the books that I read, then I'm going to tell you about the books that I started, and then we're gonna dive a bit into poetry, but not too much. So yeah, let's go. The first book I read this month was... Okay, the first book that I listened to was She's Too Pretty to Burn by Wendy Hurd. I gave this book 2.75 stars. I'm gonna give you the summary first. The summer is winding down in San Diego. Veronica is bored, caustically charismatic, and uninspired in her photography. Nico is insatiable, subversive, and obsessed with chaotic performance art. They're artists first, best friends second. But that was before Mick. Delicate, lonely, magnetic Mick. The perfect subject and Veronica's dream girl. The days are long and hot, full of adventure, and soon they're falling in love. Falling so hard they never imagine what comes next. 1 fire, 2 murders, 3 drowning bodies, 1 suspect, 1 stalker. This is a summer they won't survive. Apparently, this is inspired by The Picture of Dorian Gray. The summary disclosed like a lot of information about the characters, but did not really include that much about the plot. So I thought this was simply like a romance novel. It quickly turned into like a thriller thing that, as you can see, I did not enjoy that much. This book was so short, but at the same time so long. I got mixed up with the characters, and that's maybe because I listened to the audiobook, so maybe reading the book would have been better, but it took me a long time to like distinguish the voices between like, okay, Mick is speaking, Veronica is speaking. It might have been that the audiobook even had different voice actors for the different characters, but even that confused me. I'm not quite sure. I listened to that on like the first day, and I was finished with it like after 2 days. So I listened to it for a very long amount of time within a day, because it was exciting, it was sometimes shocking, but the writing just fell so flat. Not only was the writing not that poetic, but I don't really expect that with these books, but the writing for the characters just... On the one hand, there was so much information, like so much like plot-wise, but on the other hand, there was so little, like there was so little characteristics that I could really root for any of these characters, like Veronica, Mick, and Nico. I don't know, we're all very stereotypical, Mick being very shy, she's like this gorgeous, pretty girl, but hates the way she looks, and it sounds so like pretentious and presumptuous from someone to like create such a character that is obviously pretty and obviously beautiful, but doesn't see it herself. It gets to a point in the book where you're like a bit annoyed. You're like, okay, can we stop that now? She has an ick, so Mick hates being photographed, and then Veronica comes along, and Veronica is a photographer and sees her, and she's like, I have to take this girl's picture. And that is where the problem starts. The whole relationship of Mick and Veronica, I really wanted to like root for them. I really wanted to like them. I could not. There was so much in their relationship that I found so toxic and so disturbing without consent. The consent not being linked to like a sexual experience or sexual content, but more like emotional and action-wise and what the characters did with one another. At some point I was like, I thought you really liked this girl. Why are you doing this then? You like, this is so selfish. So the characters are flawed, which is great. We love characters that are flawed, I guess, but they were so flawed that I thought, or not flawed, but there were so many things that they did, and I was like, why are you even together? The problem is also the pace. The pacing was just weird all over, in my opinion. I could not follow because I was like, okay, they met last week and suddenly they're already in a relationship and now this is happening, problems with the parents, problems with like being alone and then lonely and then having each other and like there were all kinds of problems and issues, like Mick having problems with her mom, Nick being an orphan, Veronica, I think not having a good relationship with her dad, but having a great one with her mom. So it was just so much. And I was constantly asking myself, who's the main character? Because I thought Mick was the main character. Then I realized, okay, maybe Veronica is the main character. And then I read the summary and I was like, oh yeah, Veronica is the main character. But it started with Mick and I was confused all over. And the aspect of performance art being a dangerous thing that was like a trope in this book was not unique, but very, I guess, individual. I guess a bit special because I have not read books yet that had like performance art being like radical art movements at their core. But I did not like the way that it was portrayed, and I did not like the outcome after this performance art because Nico is a very intense person, an intense character that will just run over everyone and not really care. And there were some plot twists here and there, but overall you kind of knew things. The problem is Nico is an activist and he is creating art, like really huge, big pieces of art that will just tell the public, hey guys, you're assholes, look at this. But the topic was climate change. He was very heavily focusing on like ocean pollution, the environment, and climate change as a whole. And I thought a book that was published last year with the content of having like climate change not at its core, but at a very important point of the story, I was shocked because I was like, this is exactly the reason why activists are not taken seriously and are even called dangerous. It presented such a bad representation of activism, of performance art. And I get why the author wanted something like, it was supposed to be shocking and exciting and thrilling and all that stuff, but I was like, just use different things, not this. The problem is what? Right? I could not give you an example why I wouldn't see my exact criticism, like do it with feminism, do it with like, I don't know, Black Lives Matter, but that has the same exact outcome. If you put movements out there that are so important, that present a minority or present the issues that the minority daily faces, and you give that such a bad representation and such a bad reputation, it's not good representation at all, then just leave it, because that's like not good. That is exactly why people think that activists are dangerous, crazy, or all kinds of bad, especially if that person is responsible for the murder of people. Like, what the I did not like the relationship between Mick and Veronica. I want to read more lesbian representation in sapphic novels. This was just not good. I did not like the relationship at all. It was toxic, in my opinion. The characters, especially Veronica, were so inconsiderate of the other. And I thought, why are you even together? And then on top of that, adding this huge problem of performance art activism having such a bad picture and gaining such a bad picture throughout this book. It's just, it was supposed to drive the character Mick into a different direction and give her kind of like an arc. But it was just, no, I did not like it. I did not like it. And that's sad because I feel like every time I listen to a book and I do not like it, it's like wasted time. But I heard so many good things about it. I saw it recommended all over TikTok and I was like, why are people recommending this? Let's read better sapphic novels. If you have any recommendations, please leave them down below. Anyway, let's get to the last 3 books I read this month, which is a trilogy. I told you that I wanted to reread these books in my spring TBR, and I reread The Infernal Devices by Cassandra Clare. Now, normally when I talk about the books of the Shadowhunter Chronicles, any of them really on my channel, I usually like quickly browse through them and be like, okay, this is the book that I read, it's about them and blah blah blah. So I do not get into too much detail of these books because there's so much. Keep in mind that this is a prequel to The Mortal Instruments, which contain like 6 books. 6 huge books. I read these books for the first time in 2016. These were the books that, like The Mortal Instruments and The Infernal Devices, were books that kind of were the first ever books that I liked reading, that I sat down and wanted to read, because before that I did not like reading at all. I remember very vividly how I read these and how much I loved them. It was like the most beautiful summer. If I could have one summer back in my life, it would be 2016, because it was the best summer of my life. I remember reading these side when we were on vacation. Here, actually, a few villages down the road, I guess. And I remember reading them. It got dark. It was like, I don't know, 10 p.m. I was still sitting outside. It was summer. It was just so beautiful. And then a thunderstorm just happened, and I did not notice because I was so sucked into that world of the Shadowhunters. Let's talk a bit about it. First, I'm gonna give you basic information, and I'm gonna give you more information about this series. So the Chronicles, the Shadowhunter Chronicles, start with the Mortal Instruments, containing 6 books: City of Bones, City of Ashes, City of Glass, City of Fallen Angels, City of Lost Souls, City of Heavenly Fire. Yay. So if you see them anywhere, these are the books. They've been pretty popular. They were written in, like, I don't know when the first book came out, 2008. The first series is about Clary Frey. She finds out that she's not a normal girl like she always thought. She is actually a Shadowhunter. A Shadowhunter is a human being, I guess, who is half human, half angel. The Shadowhunters, like, come from a long line of angels, Angel Raziel, like the first blah 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 blah. It's just huge fantasy stuff. What I like about this universe is that it is set in our universe. Like, the Mortal Instruments are set in New York, and they have like institutes. They look like very old churches, so mundanes or Mongols or just normal human beings, they cannot see that world. Huge fantasy world that Cassandra Clare built with these characters. I do not read that much fantasy. I feel like every time I say I like reading fantasy books, I feel like a hypocrite, because the only fantasy books I really read are these. And okay, I guess Harry Potter, but I like that this is set in our world, that I do not have to learn maps by heart. There are not like really intricate hard names that I cannot speak, which is nice, it's lovely, but it does kind of push me away from reading other fantasy books, because I'm like, this is just so much information all at once. And I've always felt like the Mortal Instruments was more accessible. There is a bunch of information. There is so much in this universe that you have to get used to, get accustomed to. You have to know that the runes they have on their arms and on their entire bodies, these runes give these Shadowhunters power or certain abilities. You have to learn this like Shadowhunter lore, I guess. But I always found it very accessible. I always found it very intriguing and very nice that this was like, again, a world in the shadows of our world, which is kind of like typical for that time. I feel like a lot of writers did that. Clary Frey's story is a story in itself. Like, the Mortal Instruments contain 2 huge wars. I think after City of Glass, which is the 3rd book, Cassandra published the 1st book in the Infernal Devices series, which is Clockwork Angels. So let's talk about these a bit, because these are actually the books that I read. If you watched Shadowhunters, by the way, this is like the book series that the show is based on. The Mortal Instruments, not the Infernal Devices. Ich schweife ab. So after you are used to all the terms like Shadowhunter, by the way, they are fighting demons. Demons exist. They protect the human mundane world. Pretty basic. Okay, so they hunt demons. But next to Shadowhunters and demons, there also exists other beings, such as angels, already mentioned those, but more common are werewolves, vampires, which are kind of treated like shit. The Shadowhunters have racism in them, so that's like a huge system as well. The Shadowhunters see themselves like the white people in our world, because vampires and werewolves are seen as people contaminated with a demon disease, because vampires and werewolves just, you know, they were bitten at one point or turned. And then you have the fairies and the warlocks, which are created by birth, but a warlock is like half demon, half human, and a fairy is half angel, half demon. So there's just, yeah, a bunch of shit. And the Shadowhunters see themselves superior to all these beings. And this is a problem in the Mortal Instruments, but I think it is still very systematic racism problem in these books, especially in these, because these are set, this trilogy is set in 1800 something. When are we? We start in 1878. I just realized something and I don't want to cry. Anyway. And we meet Will Herondale and Jem Carstairs. These 2 are Parabatai. What the is Parabatai? Symbolized by this symbol, by this rune. Parabatai are 2 Shadowhunters that are linked by this bond. that is called parabatai, and they are closer than brothers, but not in a romantic way. Parabatai are not allowed to fall in love, otherwise it would have pretty big repercussions, which we see in a different trilogy, because if you didn't know, this entire universe spans over, I think, in the end we will have around 20 books. Okay, we have the Mortal Instruments 6 books, Infernal Devices trilogy, Last Hours trilogy, the Wicked Powers trilogy, which is still to come, Magnus Bane trilogy, the Dark Artifices trilogy. We have 2 collections of short stories, which are like huge. Magnus Bane, Shadowhunter Codex. So yeah, we have around 10, not books, but we have, I think we have 5 trilogies and 1 series which spans 6 books. So yeah, if you want to get into this universe, be aware that these books, I just realized that it's so much. God. Anyway, the great thing about this universe is that you get pretty attached to the characters. In my opinion, I have never read any books except maybe Harry Potter, but that's more like movies and stuff. That also influenced me, but with these books, I love and cherish almost every single character. There's even the characters that I like don't like are supposed to be unlikable. I even like them. Like, yes, they're assholes, but I see their character. They are a character. They have an essence and a personality and individuality. And that is the special thing about these books, I believe. With every single series that comes out, with every single trilogy, I know I'm gonna fall in love with these characters and I'm gonna cry my eyes out when they die. Let's get into detail about these books. Jesus. The Infernal Devices are set in London or England. Sometimes they like go some places. And they start in 1878. We meet Will Herondale and Jem Carstairs. So these two, Will and Jem, are like catastrophically different. No, they're not catastrophically. Maybe Will. Will is a hothead. Will is like loves danger, loves fighting, loves slicing up demons, is impulsive, definitely, cannot be contained by any other than Jem. I don't think anyone really understands him but his parabatai. And Jem is like this, I don't want to say golden boy, he's not a golden boy, he's more like, he's a silver boy. You get that when you know him because his hair is silver. And when he and Will meet, it's like there's an immediate connection. And after they become parabatai, it grows even stronger. So they understand each other very well, and the friendship or the brotherhood or whatever, it's so strong in this, and I loved them because they complement each other so well, not only in battle and because of the bond, but because of their character and their individual characters. Jem is soft-spoken, he's both of them are intelligent, but Will is more like, fuck logic. Jem does consider things, he's not impulsive, he thinks about things before he does them, and is still a very efficient shadow hunter. So these two are very different, but work perfectly when they're together. The protagonists in these books are actually not Will and Jem, though they are right underneath. The protagonist is Tessa Gray. Tessa Gray, in the beginning of the book, travels to London in order to find her brother. Her brother recently, I think, went to the UK, traveled there to, I don't know, find work to support Tessa more, because Tessa lives with her aunt, and her aunt is poor. And when she passes away, Tessa takes on this journey to London. Though when she arrives, she's not welcomed by her brother, which is promised in his letters. She's captured by 2, let's say, women that are dangerous. We quickly learn that Tessa has a unique ability that make her not mundane. So you do have this trope of, oh, I thought I was normal, but suddenly I'm not, and I'm introduced to this kind of like Shadowhunter world, which I can't believe Cassandra Clare did twice. She just, you know what, I'm just gonna do it twice, but you know it's different because this is set in England and the other story is set in New York. Whatever, I just realized that. So Tessa also, with the reader, is introduced to this world, is introduced to all the terms and things that you need to know when you read these books, which is a great method, of course, because that way you don't have to explain everything or get to the information yourself. Tessa can transform herself into different people as long as she has a significant like item of them, like an object. It could be a button from their clothes, it could be a necklace, it could be any kind of jewelry or a dress, anything. And she can transform into these people and then actually hear those people's thoughts. So these 2 sisters that capture her, these 2 women, they train her to do that, and they also make her transform into dead people. So that's great. This all leads to a greater plan by the main villain, which I'm not going to spoil here. But when Tessa is eventually rescued, brought to the Institute, she forms a connection with all these characters because they're not only Will and Jim. There are Charlotte and Henry and Jessamine, Sophie, and later the Lightwood brothers, which I do want to mention because for me the characters really drive this plot. There is plot, obviously, but the characters really elevated and are able to make me actually believe that they exist. They all are so unique in their tandem, in their living together. It's just, I love them. Did I mention that yet? Could you tell? I just love them so much. And every time someone speaks about them, or I speak to my sister about them, like, I could cry my eyes out because some of the fate of these characters, yeah, I'm gonna let you guess. These books then follow the adventures of the three main protagonists, joined by the other characters that are introduced in these books. And I love them. I do. I love the setting, I love the language, I love the characters, as I said. I do think that the villain, or the villains, are stronger in the Mortal Instruments. But it is an interesting approach to what happened and what could have happened that was not mentioned in like the Mortal Instruments. Because I feel like when you write prequels, you have to be careful what you mentioned in the former novels that come after these. So you're like, okay, I can't really mention or can't really have these figures or characters go through a huge war if it's not mentioned in the other books, because these characters, some of them actually appear in the other books. So I think that it was an interesting solution to that kind of problem or writing technique. I gotta say, these books were all like written in like 2008, 9, 10. So there's not a lot of representation in these. So you don't really have that many people of color characters. Actually can't think of anyone but Magnus. That's tragic. We don't have queer characters except for Magnus. And that's like common knowledge, so I think I can mention that. And that's just not a lot of representation. I gotta say, the books that are coming out right now, which even are set in this, I don't know, time, I guess, they are more inclusive, they are more diverse, which I love. Because I hate people and authors shying away from including representation of the LGBTQ plus community and the people of color community that are not centered around oppression and racism or systematic racism or hatred directed towards them. Eventually, I cried again at the end of these books. I think I don't even know what stars I gave these books. I think the whole series gets a 4.5 or 4.75. I just love these characters so much. The epilogue killed me again. I cried so much yesterday while doing my French homework, so we love that. Anyway, I'm gonna read you the 2 poems that I found that just stood out to me last month. Actually 3. The first time I told you about in my deep dive into poetry video, and I told you about this poem by Dakota Warren. By the way, this is her first collection. This is on sun swallowing, and I love this book. I have not actually finished reading it because I want to take my time with like poetry, but I'm gonna read you this poem which I loved very much. If you want more information like why I love this so much, then definitely watch this video. It's gonna be linked down below. So this is called, I'm gonna go to this side so you can read it simultaneously. This is called Clay / 2 nights and maybe 3 days. Do you remember when I hadn't slept for 2 nights and maybe 3 days, and we were set on the veranda out front, cracked concrete and peeling paint, insect upon insect, seeking solace from the Australian sun? Do you remember when I told you I was afraid, my skin was clay, and if I sat for too long I might set, harden, bake into a teacup or ceramic glazed bowl, painted blue with specks of gray, and oh my, is that a tear rolling down my face? Do you remember when I held the vibrating body of a dragonfly between my middle and forefinger, this luminous symbol of a childhood past, posed like a cigarette, us staring, it begging to escape. And you breathed, stop it, you hurting it, and I couldn't hear you because I was clay and I was setting. And I was clay and I was setting a blue and gray speckled teacup set cross-legged on the cracked concrete and peeling paint and temporary insect asylum veranda out front. I love the use of repetitions. in Jumbo Moss, and alliteration so much in that poem. The other poem that I found while browsing through a poetry collection, which I actually gave a friend of mine for her birthday, and I found this and I thought it was really pretty. It's called The Soldier, and it's by, I think it was Rupert Brooke. Yes, I had to crop that. Anyway, I'm gonna read it to you. The Soldier. If I should die, think only this of me, that there's some corner of a foreign field that is forever England. There shall be in that rich earth a richer dust concealed, a dust whom England bore, shaped, made aware, gave once her flowers to love, her ways to roam, a body of England's breathing English air, washed by the rivers, blessed by sons of home. And think this heart, all evil shed away, a pulse in the eternal mind, no less, give somewhere back the thoughts by England given, her sights and sounds, dreams happy as her day, and laughter learned of friends and gentleness, in hearts at peace under an English heaven. I thought this was so pretty. First time I read that it is forever England, I was like, yeah, this is pretty. Not only because I love England and I want to go back there so bad, I've only been once, so. But also because the feeling and the relatability towards something that is past, that has passed, that is no longer in your life, but that is still represented so well and so heavily in your heart and in your memory. It's just something that I loved reading about, and I felt like this poem kind of encompasses that entire idea of, hey, listen, this is over, yeah, sure, but it is forever here in my heart, and it will forever stay with me. So yeah, that's nice. And the last one that I found was by Lady Gregory. It's actually in, I think, Clockwork Prince, because each chapter starts with a little like extract or a quote of a poem or a famous writer. The one that I found really pretty is called If the Past Year Were Offered Me Again. I'm gonna try not reading it and actually know it. You can read it here, and it's by Lady Gregory. Did I say that already? I don't know. I need to drink something because I saw it. My dog is, by the way, snoring. Sorry. Okay. If the past year were offered me again, and the choice of good and ill before me set, would I accept the pleasure with the pain, or dare to wish that we had never met? Could I bear those happy hours to miss, when love began, unthought of and unspoke, that summer day when by a sudden kiss we knew each other's secret and awoke? No, not even to escape the pain, debate, and anguish that I underwent, flying from thee and my own self in vain, with troubles wasted, till my strength all spent. I knew at last that thou, or love, or fate, had conquered, and repentance was too late. It is a very sad poem. If I made any mistakes, I'm sorry, but you were able to read the original here. I don't know, I just thought this was so easily understood and so accessible that I wanted to show it to you, that poetry does not have to be that hard. But I thought it was pretty, and kind of, again, a good representation of that feeling of something so beautiful happening in your life, and then it's gone and you can't really get it back. And the experience had the exact amount of pain and pleasure. On the one hand, it made you feel really crappy about yourself, and the other was like, I feel amazing, this is the best thing of my life and I never want to lose it. So very hard to deal with, and like so hard in contrast. Also a feeling that is so relatable. It's astounding every time I read something like this, when I realize how many conflicts we have to discuss within ourselves that have established such stark contrasts within the conflict, first of all, and also within ourselves. So you're like, when this is so bad, why don't I make this choice? because it's also so good, but I can't really choose. So that is another thing that I will not talk about now. I finally finished this video. God, I thought this was gonna be like done in like, I don't know, 20 minutes, maybe 30, because I do talk a lot, but suddenly I talked for an hour and I don't know how long this video is. Even though I have not read that much this month, I still hope that this video was enjoyable, and if you liked it then please give me a thumbs up and comment down below what you would like to see next. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet, and don't forget to click the little bell next to the subscription button to never miss an upload. I will probably upload this video before my first week of university vlog. I hope that's okay, because I want to get the April wrap up out of the way, I guess, or just give it to you early. I did not tell you about the books that I started reading. I'm currently reading The Secret Garden. I'm also currently reading One Last Stop, History of the Rain, a short story by Oscar Wilde, The Secret History by Donna Tartt. So yeah, like 5 books at the same time. Oh yeah, Marriage of a Thousand Lies, currently reading that. So yeah, just a lot. Anyway, what are you currently reading? Oh, my highlight of this month, probably like the last book, Clockwork Princess. Oh no, actually it was the first one. It was Clockwork Angel, because I was like thrusted back into the time of me reading them for the first time. It was really nice going back down memory lane, I guess. So yeah, that was probably my highlight. I'm really excited for all the books that I'm going to read in May, and hope you're excited too. Let me know what's on your reading list. Let me know what you read, what was your highlight. And I'm done with talking. As always, I will link sources that I find reliable and loyal down below, and if you have any, please leave them in the comments for everyone. There's also a link to donate to the people that need our help right now, all connected to the current crisis that is going on in Europe and the war. I hope you all stay safe, stay well. Anyone who's writing or is going to write very big exams in the next few weeks, because I know that some of you are. Good luck. If your new semester started like mine, good luck, I guess. Have fun, and anything else, tell me about it. And yeah, I think this is it. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hopefully see you in my next video. Bye! Okay, anyway, that's enough about this. Okay, that's it. Can I speak? No. And then it started, I don't even know if they had different voices, but even that could not me. What? And then it started. Yeah. At Gesundheit! And I reread the. Subscribe to this channel. Okay, it's gonna be enough. Bye! Bye.